I want to have the ability for everyone to introduce themselves and then just give a quick 2 minutes of your background with the situation here in Aurora with Tren de Aragua and any perspectives that you have with that or overall in the state, what we could be doing better. I hope that this is an informative and polite discussion. We don't want any disruptions. We want to be able to bring as much information as possible to this situation and others in an informative way so we could get the truth out to Coloradans, and hopefully that this is a productive time that we have here. And so I'll just start. I'm Congresswoman Boebert, and I have a piece of Aurora in the new district that I'm running for in Colorado's 4th district. I'm from Aurora, and so this is really near and dear to my heart. And this is not, to me, just an Aurora issue. This is all throughout Colorado, and we're going to discuss much of that. But I would like to go counterclockwise here and pass it over to my colleague from Texas, Congressman Chip Roy.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for all of y'all for hosting me. I'm up here in what I joke around and call far North Texas. And there's obviously some history to the connection there. But it is great to be here. I have family who I was visiting with and staying with last night, just a few miles down the road. So been here before many times visiting family. And look, this is something that we're experiencing every day on the front lines, so to speak, in Texas. And I wanted to come see firsthand. I'm a believer in follow the truth wherever it may lead. It's just something that I just believe in, and trying to expose the truth and make sure people know the truth. And if you find the truth doesn't fit a certain narrative that you came in with a preconception, that's fine. But we need to know the truth, and we don't always get the truth through the filter of with all due respect, the media and the cameras. So I want to know the truth. That's why I'm here. Offer some perspective from Texas. We're dealing with it all the time. Kinney County, Texas, for example, touches the border and stretches up almost to the district that I represent. They had 150 crimes in 2021. They've had 15,000 crimes since 2021. Imagine dealing with that if you have one single judge, one single sheriff, a small courtroom with a handful of few thousand people in a relatively rural county. We're experiencing that every day. It's what we've been dealing with for 3 years, and now more of the country is experiencing it. And we have to shine the light on this. And what is happening here in Aurora is highly concerning, I think, for a lot of Americans watching this, including in Texas, who have been dealing with it. So my goal is to try to seek and get the truth. I've had a lot of good conversations on the ground, meeting with people in Aurora. Want to have this conversation, try to make sure we can use whatever megaphones we have to make sure the country and the world know what's happening here, because it has to stop. Too many people are dying. Too many Texans are dying. Too many Coloradans are dying from fentanyl poisoning, from crime, from gangs, and we've got to make sure we address this issue from the beginning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Holman. I was the U.S. Director under President Trump. I was invited here by my two congressional friends here, Lauren and Chip. I got deep respect for both of them. Chip is the tip of the spear in Congress when it comes to trying to secure our border. I mean, I respect this man very much. I'm here to help. Whatever I can do to help. Look, there's a lot of people in this country have an opinion of me. I don't really care what the opinion is. I've worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. I've seen policies come and go. I know what policies work. I know what policies don't. I know what the damage things for our cities can do to law enforcement. So I'm here to offer any advice, help any way I can. Because I care about public safety. I care about the safety and security of everybody. And that's why I'm here.
My name is Danielle Jurinski. I am an Aurora native, born in this city, been here my whole life. And I serve on the Aurora City Council. I'm an at-large member. I represent the whole city, and I am also the chair of the Public Safety Committee for Aurora.
George Steele, Douglas County Commissioner. Usually folks with the state senator, state representative, folks love living in Douglas County because we do avoid a lot of the problems that we tend to see in the more urban areas of the Denver metro. Part of the reason why I'm here today is to kind of share the story that we've been exposed to in Douglas County starting this summer, where actually we are feeling some of those problems that I think folks normally associate with our urban areas in America. And we have been hit by TDA in terms of crimes that are being committed in Douglas County, in our municipalities, but also in our unincorporated areas that are probably more suburban in nature. This is something that we do tend to get. We received a brief from our sheriff's department. I want to share with everybody, listen, our sheriff's department is working as part of a regional task force right now, based off a task force that they started up this summer to deal with this problem that we really didn't know what the origin was. But over time, and I'm sure it's an ongoing investigation, but I believe I can share that that investigation will reveal that indeed there is a connection to TDA and the gang situation that we've seen infiltrate into Aurora, into the metropolitan area. Even we're feeling it down in mostly rural Douglas County. And that's why I'm here today.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Anthony Hartsook. I represent Parker, House District 44. And so we are adjacent to Aurora. Parker Road runs smack into the middle of our district. And as you just heard the commissioner talk about, I work closely with our sheriff, Darren Weekly. We have seen crime increasing over the last few years. I also spent 26 years in the United States Army. I've been stationed along the border in various locations in Texas, California, and Arizona. So I've covered a great swath of that border. Down in El Paso, we saw massive increases. And this is 15 years ago, and it has just continued to get worse. The increase of crime, drugs, cartels, you name it, they run it across the border. Anything, because it's a business to them. And however they can make money in a business through intimidation, force, coercion, doesn't matter to them. They're there to make money, and they will do whatever it takes to make that money. And we need to look at how we stem that in multiple ways. So we're looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
My name is Fred Ludlow. I'm just a resident of Aurora. My wife and I, family moved here in 2001 and have not been very political and gotten more so. I became concerned. I saw a couple of news things and then a few things posted online about what was going on. And I thought, shoot, I live about 15 minutes, 20 minutes away from this. So I went up to Nome Street early August 9th. And I could not believe it. I mean, I literally could not believe it. And so I especially couldn't believe that people were trying to deny that it was a gang problem or a crime problem. They were trying to just put it off on the owners of the building. And as the owners of rental properties, the last thing you want as an owner is for your properties to be trashed and vacant. And about a week later, after I thought, well, surely it's gotten better by now. So I went up there again, and it was, if anything, was worse. And so, it's not the exact neighborhood we're in, but it affects Aurora, and I pay taxes in Aurora, and I care about those citizens in Aurora up there that are having to deal with it, because the apartment buildings around that area, lower income, but hardworking people, and some of the houses just north of that are cute houses, well-kept yards, and they're impacted by it. And I could not believe that government officials were trying to deny it. So that's all.
I'm Tracy Ludlow, and I'm his wife, and he's fired for putting me on this table. But we've lived, like he said, we've lived here since 2001. We've raised 3 kids here. Two of our kids are older, and they're trying to get into the housing market, and they can see how hard it is when they're competing with so many people just in the regular housing market. Also, as a concerned mom, I want my grandkids eventually to live here and grow up in the same, nice Colorado that we've enjoyed for the last 23 years. So I see it from the familiar, the family perspective, and then also as a realtor, people don't want to live in areas that are having gang problems. So I feel like it's something that we really need to get ahead of instead of letting it, get far enough down the road that it's unfixable.
Hello, my name is Cindy Romero. I reside at the edge of Boebert Apartments. I'm the one who released the video. I've been taking video of that area for every year. I see many, many, many videos of police. I've heard from the people inside the building that are remaining after I finally escaped prisoner. The 28 months. That once the videos went viral, the gangs left. They left. They were scared. You shine the light on them, they run. And they want me to keep releasing videos, just so they'll stay safe. Something has to be done. Now, I didn't raise my kids anymore. I wish I had. My husband's he talked me into bringing my family to Aurora 20 years ago when we got married. We made an agreement that we would move to Colorado once our kids were grown. And we moved here, and we loved it here. And we started our Green Valley Ranch. And then we thought, well, that's a little bit far from Denver, so we thought we'd just move just a little bit closer. I spent the last year trying to look for alternative housing and low income because I don't make a lot of money. I work part-time, I have health problems. All of the lower income housing looks the same. All of it. Young men with purses that's like this, just enough, just big enough to terrify everybody that walks around them that they have handguns. They forced all the leaseholders about my building till I was the only one left. And if you guys don't know what it feels like to be a minority in your own home, I'm telling you, it's terrifying. I bartered, I donated, I talked, I tried to find them help. That's what I had to do to stay alive. And when the gunshot started that day, I seen them moving the guns that morning. I called and reported it. I had cameras picking them up, moving the guns from one building to another. The police did not come. They matter of fact called me and told me that they weren't coming. If you see 6 men carrying 3 automatic weapons in broad daylight, 7 a.m. in the morning, not trying to hide it, you know something bad is going to happen, and we knew it. I sat on my camera all day. I was just watching it, just the live feed of one of my cameras, just hoping that nothing happened. When they ran up in the building that night and I caught it on camera, I was viewing through one of my other cameras, live view. And while you're viewing through the camera, you can only take screenshots. I caught a screenshot of them holding a family on my floor by gunpoint, looking for whatever they were looking for. At this point, it doesn't matter if they were gangs, if they were criminal element, they're allowed to fester, they're just gonna get worse. They ran me up out of my building. I lost my home. I've had so many financial hardships associated with this. Now, I know the narrative is that the city is saying that these apartments are run down. Now, I can't speak on other apartments because I didn't live there. I lived on the 3rd floor of my building, and I watched every day as 30, 40 people would congregate in our walkthrough that we had to go to get to our cars to go back and live to work. I missed days from work. My husband missed days from work. We had bullet holes in our car. We've had our tires stabbed. We've had our taillights broken. I've reported so many crimes in that area that I had to leave because I am not bulletproof. But if someone doesn't shine the light on this soon, it's just going to keep spreading. And I am Mexican. I am by no means against smart immigration. My family immigrated here, many of yours did as well. But if we don't do something about the criminal element, it's going to make every immigrant that comes to us. It's just the way things work. I'm safe now. I'm ashamed to say that it's 35 minutes outside of Aurora where I wanted to raise my family. But my older kids, they're almost in their 30s now and they're starting their families. They live in Aurora. And I talked them into moving there. I'm imploring anybody who listen, please do something. Don't deny it. It wasn't my imagination. The rest of the video I have, the screenshots, the many calls to 911 begging for help, the many calls to programs in the area, begging for help, to be told that there's no programs that work for someone who pays taxes but is displaced due to gang violence. There's no programs for that. So as I ride around in my new home, I've got bullet holes in my car. I got a target on my back, but at least some light is coming on in Aurora.
Thank you.
My name is Chet Ellefson. I'm a small business owner in Aurora, and I was one of the volunteers that helped move the family out that day. And it was a completely eye-opening experience. The fact that they don't care about the police, there's no fear when it comes to the police. I saw 4 or 5 prostitutes walking around that day. They tried to attack Danielle. It's just crazy. Before we were done moving everything out of their apartment, people were already moving in to the apartment to squat in. We weren't even fully out yet, and people were moving in. And I walked up as my friend came up from Colorado Springs to help, and he handed me a box. I was down in the moving truck putting everything in, and he said, "Man, they're already moving in there." And I said, "I have to go see this for myself." And I walked up, and sure as anything, there were 3 little kids were moving in, teenage kids. They had a little puppy, and a police officer followed me up and basically kicked them out, and then took the keys that she handed over to the gang from the little girl and said, "You guys don't belong here, get out." And that's the first time the police, I've seen them do anything. And what really twisted my mind and made it really hard for me to comprehend is there was, I don't know how many, 20-some police maybe there that day, several police there that day. And they were there making sure we were safe, moving the good guys out so the bad guys can stay in and run amok. It made no sense to me that there's plenty of police there to move the bad guys out, but their hands are tied right now. And I'm a father of 2 young kids. I GPS'd it from my living room, and it's 7.7 miles away from my front door. It's just too close. I have a 6 and an 8-year-old, and it's just too close. And so I'm here to help in any way I can, and advocate for these people that need to get the help they need.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ron Weinberg. I'm the state representative for House District 51, City of Loveland. I thank the Congresswoman for the invitation today, being in my backyard. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you. I'm here, like the good representative from Texas, to know the truth and what is the answer to give to my constituents who have literally been asking me what is going on. And if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere in the state of Colorado. So I'm here to know and learn and be able to deliver the message back to my constituents as to what is actually happening in this city and why is it so out of control. And in my opinion, going through my first term with the good representative and the good senator here, our legislature is a mess. Our legislature is a mess. We are handcuffing our police officers every single time with multiple bills in the legislature. So I'm here to learn, use my 2 years, and shut my mouth as much as possible. But I want to know what's going on, and if I can ever find out as to how to make sure that this does not seep into northern Colorado, then I'm going to do that. So thank you for having me today.
Are you from the South African Zimbabwean portion of Colorado? Where are you from?
So I am an immigrant. I legally immigrated. It took me 22 years to get my papers for the country.
From
South Africa.
right.
You good catch on the accent.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a deep concern with me. My parents just got their papers, took them 25 years.
Yeah.
They just got it 2 years ago.
Johannesburg's loss is our game. So-
Durban.
Durban, what, Durban?
Born in Johannesburg.
Okay. Oh, awesome. I spent quite a time there once. A job assignment to me. Love that country. Okay, my name is Mark Baisley. Happy to serve in the Colorado State Senate. You know, I just came from a bill signing just right across the town in northwest Aurora. And in fact, here's the pen that the governor used to sign my bill. And you know, this topic did not come up, which is a shame because it comes up a lot for me in the 8 counties that I represent in the middle of the state, the center of the state. It comes up a lot. I had a constituent last night in Florence, Colorado, just lay into me hard about what's happening in Aurora. They are in fear. My constituents are in fear, as are your representative and your representative Hudson. and yours, Commissioner. They're in fear. This is why we're here. So while that topic did not come up there, I'll tell you where it did come up. It didn't come up with my conversation with the governor this morning, but it did come up with a meeting requested by my sheriff in Teller County, Jason Mikesell, who asked for a meeting with me yesterday and sat in his office, and he said that the bill that you ran along with Representative Holtorf earlier this year, and it's House Bill 24-1128, he says you need to run that bill again in 2025. So that is my intention. What that bill would do, and I would love your advice on this one, Director Holman, that bill would override the current restrictions that disallow law enforcement from working with ICE. So we want to blow off those doors, unshackle them. Here is a law enforcement chief who is asking me to release them to be able to work with ICE so that they can protect their citizens. All of the law enforcement agencies across the state, I'll say all of them, most of them, he tells me, Sheriff Mike Sill tells me that probably every sheriff across the 64 counties in the state are going to rise up in support of that bill when we run it again next year, because they need the ability, they need the authority to move folks who are dangerous to the people that they serve and protect to somewhere else, like the country where they came. So thank you, Congresswoman Boebert, for inviting me here today. So I'm here to learn and understand and try to be smarter on this so I can be more effective when representing my constituents. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Stephanie Hancock. I am the Ward 4 council person representing on the City Council, and I'm also on the Public Safety Committee along with Councilwoman Danielle Jurinski. I appreciate the fact that this has gotten some attention. It's unfortunate that it had to go really high up in order for it to get attention because, well, we might have been just imagining things. But the fact of the matter is that this is a problem that if it isn't addressed judiciously, effectively, immediately, it's going to spread to every neighborhood. And the fact that we're putting light on this is really important to emphasize how critical this immigration policy has negatively impacted our cities. And we've got to do something about it. I'm in agreement with everyone at the table. But, talking about it is great. Now we need to take talk and make it action.
Agreed. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Councilwoman.
John Fabricatori, United States Air Force veteran, retired field office director for Colorado and Wyoming. Currently running for Congress in CD6, the absentee Jason Crow currently holds the seat. Look, this is a sanctuary state. Let's put it right down the line. This is exactly what it is. The state legislature has voted in sanctuary laws to keep this state as a sanctuary state. And even though we have people on the Aurora City Council that are pushing back against that to not make Aurora sanctuary, it doesn't matter as long as we have solidified laws on the books to keep this a sanctuary state. We need to fight against that. Sanctuary state status does not protect citizens. It only protects illegal criminal aliens. That's exactly who it protects. It doesn't give any protection to any citizen. We need to make sure we repeal those laws, make sure that we can make Colorado safe, keep these gangs out of our communities, and make sure as we move into the future, Colorado can be what Colorado was, a great Western community for all of us to be safe and to raise our children in.
Thank you. So as we move forward today, we really want to highlight the areas that you are most familiar in. And we have former ICE Director Tom Homan here. John Fabricatori was also a regional ICE director for all of Colorado and Wyoming. He retired 2 years ago. There is not currently a director for ICE present here. So we need to see how to facilitate this from a federal perspective and be able to coordinate with local governments. I understand now that there's a bill here by Senator Baisley and Representative Holtorf that would allow ICE to coordinate with local governments. And also, we have Commissioner George Teal here, Douglas County Commissioner. He and several other counties throughout Colorado are currently have a lawsuit against the state of Colorado for that exact topic, not being able to coordinate with ICE. Now, this doesn't mean ICE cannot do their job at all, but that coordination is critical to be able to communicate with the local governments and local police force of what is going on, what presence is in the area, who is on probation, who is under some sort of investigation or watch. This is critical to keep our communities safe. So we are going to allow for question and answers towards the end of this, but I really want at this table for everyone to kind of fill in the gaps that we have here. My colleague Chip Roy will kind of co-moderate this alongside of me, but we want to highlight these sanctuary policies that are hindering local governments from keeping their communities safe. We've heard a lot of talk in the media that Aurora is a Republican-run city, and so it's not the issue of this being sanctuary policies or our state legislature being having Democrats in the majority. However, all of this creeps in. We've heard Mayor Kaufman, who was invited today, he couldn't make it. We've heard from him state that Aurora will not allocate tax dollars towards the facilitation of illegal aliens in the city. However, they're still here, and there needs to be a police force present that is going to help the citizens. And the policies that come from the top get in the way of that greatly. So when it comes to talking about the owners of the apartment complex, my colleague Chip Roy spoke directly with one of the people who previously owned or managed the building. And so we have more information on that. But it seems that there's a lot of turnover when it comes to the purchase of these properties, and there was someone who came in and bought this property who wanted to invest in it a few $100,000, and as soon as the investments were made, new heating, the copper was tore out, new doors and windows and locks, all of that was broke into, cameras immediately within the week torn down, and so it's really hard for someone to come in and invest when there's such a high crime problem that the police aren't either able to or willing to come in and assess. And so we want to get to the bottom of all of that. And I think everyone here at this table, and hopefully everyone here in this room, we are pro legal immigration. Naturalization ceremonies are some of the most beautiful things that I've ever attended as an elected official. Seeing people like our great representative here, thank you so much, Mr. Weinberg, who have come here and invested their time and their resources, their minds, because they have that understanding that they have what it takes to help make this a more perfect union. And now here he is serving in our country and in our state legislature. And so there are people who are willing to make those investments and be a part of our communities in a very healthy way. And we want to encourage that and discourage the wide open borders that allow women to be trafficked, children to be trafficked, to be harmed, and really put in the care of cartels. So I'm gonna pass it over to Chip Roy and we'll get this flow kind of started here.
Well, thanks, Lauren, and we'll just be working together on this. Mostly, I mean, I can tell you from my perspective, I just want to hear. And I think, Lauren and I were talking about this before, one of the most important things we can do for the country, for the state, and for the city of Aurora, and for the people back home in Texas that I represent, is establish the facts on the ground. There's a lot of information flying around. We just heard very heartfelt testimony, or, we're not under oath here, but a statement from Cindy and from what she's gone through, but both as a human and as someone who's a resident of an apartment complex, that she's on the ground. She's seeing what's actually happening. Those of us on the outside looking at this, we're listening to politicians frame things a certain way, try to use party lines. And I'll admit, I come in with my own biases as a outspoken conservative Republican. I get that. I just want truth. And so I think the question here right now is, if we can figure out and establish the facts in several buckets. Are there, in fact, an enormous number of however you want to characterize illegal aliens, undocumented individuals, people in Aurora? Yes or no? That would be an important fact for this group to be able to sort of share with the world. Is crime going up? Is there demonstrable both data and or anecdotal evidence of crime going up as a direct result of that? Is there organized criminal activity, be it in the form of gangs, be it in the form of connection back to organized crime in Venezuela, etc.? And then finally, specific to the events that has captured the imagination of the media, in part because of what Cindy put out, did any of these gangs or criminal elements, or however we want to describe them, take in some form or fashion control of those apartment complexes? I've seen politicians trying to scapegoat this and go, oh, there was nobody taking charge or control of those buildings. Well, define control and define the timing of the control when police showed up and when the national media was focused on it. So I just want this group to be able to establish a fact a standard, a baseline of the facts, so that we can then go talk about this at the national level, the state level, here in Colorado, because this stuff has to stop. So, Danielle, you've been at the tip of the spear on some of this, so I'd be curious from your perspective, from Stephanie, from your perspective here in the City Council in Aurora, what is your perspective on at least those questions right there, from what you've been able to observe, boots on the ground, information you have, data you have, etc.?
Sure. Well, I'm going to take up a lot of time, folks. I have a lot of screens pulled up here on my phone, so we can just go through all of this. In the Denver metro area, it's numbers go back and forth. Roughly 42,000 migrants have arrived in the Denver metro area since December of 2022. About 1,800 of those have been authorized to work. That came out May 30th, 2024. That is about the most current information that I have, and that's who has been tracked. So that's a pretty large number.
Pretty significant number in Aurora.
I think for the Denver metro area as a whole.
But I'm just asking specifically for those who live here, anecdotally at least, a significant number of people who are undocumented or released into the United States with a notice to appear, which is another category of people, which the ICE guys can talk about,
Yeah.
that are present physically here in Aurora.
Well, absolutely, and I think that the first time that this appeared for Councilmember Hancock and I, this happened in her ward, and this is what directed my attention to this situation, was during the Venezuelan election that was July 29th. Roughly 4,000 to 5,000 folks gathered. It was a pop-up gathering. There was no intel on it. Police didn't catch it. ICE didn't catch it. Nobody caught this. And roughly 4,000 to 5,000 people showed up in a major intersection in Ward 4. And they pulled in all different directions. They pulled in all different directions, and all of a sudden, we started receiving phone calls, emails. Folks were trapped in their cars, parked in their cars, because these folks just came in. They came
On
in
foot, or were they busting, or
car.
they were mostly cars. I think some of them walked in, but mostly cars. We started getting calls from folks saying that they were trapped in their cars. They couldn't get out. They couldn't back out. One gentleman reached out and said that his wife and children were trapped in the Noodles and Company. He said, "I'm grabbing my gun and I'm going down there to get my family out." The police, again, there was no intel on this, but I think what was most alarming was the sheer numbers. The police told us in the next public safety meeting that this was unprecedented. They had never seen something like this. They had never seen a pop-up gathering happen so fast with so many people that no one had any intel on. There were several crimes committed. Fortunately, there were no deaths, but there were several crimes committed, and our police department was absolutely ill-prepared to deal with that. And that intersection borders Denver and Aurora. So that's kind of when this first jumped on my radar.
wow.
And then
We're seeing images of this now that gets exactly how you're describing
so this
it.
is how it started, and I made the first post. I put a post out about it, and that's kind of how the spotlight just turned in my direction. That post went viral. Those images were sent to me by police officers. Aurora police officers climbed up buildings that night, climbed up the buildings and started taking photos. That's not drone footage. Those photos are from our police officers in Aurora who climbed up buildings knowing that they were outnumbered. They climbed up the buildings and started taking photos, started calling me directly for help.
This was all July 29th, you
This is
said?
all July 29th.
Okay, for the Venezuelan elections.
Yep.
All right, so that's one example of the mass numbers.
That's when it jumped on.
Right.
That's when it jumped on our radar.
Right.
I think that's when we've been hearing, and I've been hearing from a lot of constituents about an uptick in crime in certain parts of the city.
Right.
But that's really when it first jumped on my radar. So what I would like to expose is you talk about, we have declared in Aurora that we are not a sanctuary city.
Correct.
Well, let me just tell you how these folks got here. Through conversations with the State Office of New Americans, DOLA,
Yes.
and the City and County of Denver's Office of New Americans, we learned that 2 nonprofits were placing migrant individuals and families in Aurora. No housing quality inspections were completed to check for even basic life safety concerns prior to placing individuals in apartments in Aurora. From my understanding, deposit assistance was offered as well as 3 months of rent in some cases. This was done starting in the spring of 2023 and continued to the spring of 2024. As the beginning of August 2024, I was told that no additional placements were being made and that there was no additional funding for this purpose. Many migrants were placed in the properties that CBZ owned, according to Papagayo and Live Wellness, 2 of the nonprofits receiving state and Denver funding as pass-through agencies. From conversations with Village Exchange, I believe they also received funding and were placing people in Aurora. However, they did not confirm any placements at the CBZ-owned properties. The CBZ properties had lower rent, lack of consistency with providing leases, more leniency with the number of people in each unit, which led to the aggregation of migrants at these properties. This information is from the residents that have been complaining about the migrants moving in. So this is how this happened. This is Colorado state tax dollars. This is Denver tax dollars that moved these folks into Aurora, placed them into Aurora, and deposit assistance was made available. 3 months rent was made available, and then after that it kind of becomes blurry. Did those folks just stay when the rental assistance was up? We're not really sure.
Councilwoman, I want to ask, because this morning I watched the news, and it's all over the news is saying that the crime rate in Aurora is down. They show a graph on the news this morning.
I'm going right there. So this report just came out yesterday. This is from the Common Sense Institute. I don't know if anybody else has seen this report. And ultimately, crime overall in Aurora is down. But if you look at these 3 properties specifically, and Cindy mentioned all of the times that her and other tenants would call 911 and simply the police wouldn't come. So if you look at this, apartment complexes in Aurora have ignited a storm of interest from the public after armed men were caught on camera in a building hallway. This triggered concerns about a Venezuelan prison gang known to operate in Colorado since mass migration of Venezuelans began in 2022. Whether attached to a gang or the result of the landlord neglect, some properties have indeed seen sharp upticks in crime, while similar properties have not. Areas of interest include apartment complexes at 1218 Dallas Street, 1568 Nome Street, 15483 East 13th Avenue, 1663 North Alton Street, and the 1400 block of Moline Street. The Dallas Street buildings, where Cindy lived, have commanded the most media attention. The Dallas Street apartments have indeed seen a dramatic increase in the number of crimes and citations in the last 2 years. The annual number of crimes and citations rose from 31 in 2022 to 52 in 2023. Through the end of August alone, there have been a 158% increase from 2022.
Yes.
So if we look at these specific areas, and one thing I would really like to make clear, nobody has ever said that the entire city of Aurora has been overrun with gangs.
Correct.
Nobody has ever said that. But reports that are now coming out breaking down these specific addresses, these specific complexes, and there's Dallas in here. The Whispering Pines Apartments, this is 15483 East 13th Avenue in Aurora, have seen the same increase. The number of crime and citations shot from 29 in 2022 to 49 in 2023, and 44 so far year to date in 2024.
Danielle, if I can
Yes.
say one thing here, and I'll turn it
Yeah.
over to Lauren.
Yep.
For John and for Tom, right? There was reporting last night, this morning, by Bill Malugin on Fox about the ICE confirming that all 4 of the known and suspected Tren de Aragua gang members arrested by police in Aurora in connection to the shooting attempted murder in July are Venezuelan illegal aliens who were caught and released at the Texas border by the Biden administration.
Correct.
And the thing that I just want to ask you guys, and when we get to the cause issue, I want to stay focused on Aurora and what's happening here at this end. But for those that are saying, well, yeah, don't worry about this. This is just one isolated incident in one, apartment building. When you've got this going on, where you've got 4 individuals that are here that we know were released, but that ICE confirms were released into the United States, is this not indicative of a much bigger national problem? And what we're now seeing in Aurora is a direct result of that. I'd say to Tom and to John.
I think one of the things I don't think a lot of people realize, okay, the citizens of Venezuela are going to be locked up. There's a Supreme Court rule, it's a Zabidas ruling, which means right now this administration has no relationship with Venezuela, which means you can't deport them to Venezuela. Even if they lose their case, they can't be deported to Venezuela, which means ICE can detain them for up to 6 months with justification, but at 6 months they got to be released.
Right.
To release back in the same community to reoffend. So, look, I'll just, you've got 2 underlying problems here. Number one, you got the administration who unsecure the border, right, and releasing millions of people in the United States with no proper vetting. Because when the administration says they're vetting people, they vet them against NCIC. We don't have access to criminal data in Venezuela or El Salvador or most countries in this world. So when they say they vet them, they vet them against national security databases, they vet them against NCIC and III. So 98% of people being released, there's no true vetting of these people. They're being released, right? And we know a large percent are criminals. So this administration has unsecured the border. People can still claim asylum. They could have waited in Mexico to make a Mexico program. They did away with that. And one thing, before I move on to the second issue, there's one thing you need to understand. The media likes to call, these are asylum seekers. Okay, they're coming in from an asylum claim. But at the end of the day, if you look at immigration court data, nearly 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at the border will be ordered removed because they simply don't qualify for asylum. It's asylum fraud. And while they're committing asylum fraud, millions of people are standing in line, taking their tests, paying their fees, doing a background investigation. Now they're in the back seat looking at this. The other issue, and John talked about earlier, is sanctuary city status in this state. You got to get away with it. The voters have to stand and get away with it. Sanctuary cities, the big lie is, and that what they push, we want sanctuary city policies so victims and witnesses of crime will feel comfortable coming to police because we're not working with ICE. That is just a stone cold lie. Because all ICE wants is access to the bad guy. We don't want to talk to the victim and witness. We want to talk to the guy that you locked up. And you must have locked him up for a reason. Either he's a criminal or he's a flight risk. We want to talk to that guy. And we want you to connect us with that guy. That's what we want. So what Sanctuary Cities actually does is a sanctuary for criminals. And do you think the victim and witness of that crime want the guy released back in the neighborhood? Of course not. So that's a false pretense. They say, well, we're protecting victims. Well, no, you're not. You're putting the bad guy back where the victim and witness are. Number two, what happens when they don't give ICE access to the bad guy? ICE has to go to the neighborhood and find him. What happens then? Puts ICE officers at danger, puts the alien at danger, because he can have access to who knows what weapons. And finally, it puts the immigrant community at greater risk of ICE arrest, because when we find the bad guy, he's probably going to be with others that weren't even on the radar. Then now they're going to go too. So sanctuary city policies put immigrant communities at greater risk of crime. They put immigrant communities at greater risk of ICE arrest. They make it more dangerous for the immigrant community, and they make it more dangerous for ICE officers. And your crime rate will continue to go up, because anybody can Google right now recidivism rates. Over half these people that were arrested will create another crime, commit another crime within 5 years. Up to 75% really committed crime within 8 years. That's just the facts as laid out. So sanctuary cities is a problem in this state. You gotta get rid of it. There's no reason to have a sanctuary city policy. Sanctuary criminals, number two, this administration has fault. They have a lot of blood in their hands. Look, Aurora is one of many places, New York City, Chicago, Seattle, I can go on and on and on what's happening. Votes matter, elections matter. And that's why we gotta take some action. I'll let you follow up.
Yeah, and I'll hit up on your recidivism rate. So I testified to Congress last July about recidivism. I was testifying about illegal criminal aliens in the interior of the United States and the crimes that they commit. So the recidivism rate, based on the arrests that ICE had made of criminal convicted aliens, each one of them on average had 4 additional convictions. 4 additional convictions per each arrest. So again, they're getting put out on the street and they're committing more crimes because criminal illegal aliens, those who are convicted of crimes, are true criminals. They're not the immigrant that's coming here in order to work, to try to make a better life for themselves in America. What we're getting across the border, much of what we're getting from Venezuela, are guys that have been committing crimes in those countries, and that was their job there. And now their job in the United States, this is a huge honeypot, more money, more things for them to steal. They're going to continue to do that. The other thing that we need to be careful of is what the stats say and what they are. You're going to have a lower crime stat when you have less police officers working. The Aurora PD right now is down. What's the percentage on hires? Do either of you know?
On any given day, as we discussed in the last public safety meeting, on any given day we are down upwards of 200 officers.
200 officers down. So 200. That's 200 officers not investigating crimes, going out into the community, responding to calls. So right now, I'm getting messages from many citizens. I've interviewed a few who say, we call the police, they don't show up. Hours later, they'll call us and say, hey, can you do a report online? That's not going into the system as a criminal statistic. When you're down 200 officers who aren't on the street each night looking for crime, trying to make arrests, your stats are going to be artificially low. Also, when you go into the criminal databases now, you'll see where they're trying to hide certain queries from us. And the place of birth where they should be putting where these people are actually from, MX for Mexico, VZ for Venezuela, they're putting XX so that we cannot look up the statistics to find who's actually committing the crimes. So instead of being able to go into the system and search, okay, in this time period, how many Venezuelans were arrested by Denver? You put it in there, you pull up 12, and you're like, I know more than 12 were arrested. You don't, because they're hiding it by putting XX in the place of birth. They've also, you guys know this, especially our state legislatures here, many of the felonies were recategorized to what? To misdemeanors, high misdemeanors by the state legislature. What was it, last year that went through? They've been doing it. So they've been lowering these felonies to these misdemeanors. So when that information goes to the FBI is not taking the statistic for the high misdemeanor. They're asking for felony crimes. So it looks like we have an artificial drop because we've just changed the verbiage. We've changed what actually was a felony into a misdemeanor to make it look like less crimes are occurring.
And there's one more thing I just want to point out about the administration's actions. A lot of these people don't enter the country illegally. You understand that? This administration also created the CHMV program.
Right.
Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, right? So Venezuelans are being flown in by the thousands to our airports
On a parole
in the United
status.
States. They call them illegal entry. I think me and Chip agrees. It's not illegal. It's under a lawsuit. No, I just wish the federal courts would hurry up and rule on it. But they're bringing 1,000 in through the port of entry through the CHMV program, knowing all 4 of these countries won't take their people back.
And have a high rate of fraud.
Right. And
Right, that program just found 18,000 illegal aliens were sponsored by one dead man. And what are they doing with the CHMV program? They just reopened it again. So look, you need to understand the Access Administration not only not securing the border, bringing millions of people illegally, they're bringing them in through the CHMV program, the CBP1 app, which are called legal entries.
And I'm going to try to not make this political because it shouldn't be. We're trying to get to the facts. We did have a vote last year in Congress on the CHMV program. I would encourage everybody to go look at the votes. You should. Go look at the votes and who voted for what when we had an amendment to block the administration from using the CHMV program to pull people in, specifically from Venezuela, which is flowing in a lot of the gang members. I don't know, did you want to go? So,
Yes, yes. So, well, first, Danielle brought up this Office of New Americans, and this is something that I've been speaking on ever since it was created. And it's funny, they've changed the language now on the website for the state of Colorado because it still starts off with who are new Americans, but it used to say DACA recipients, SIV holders, and all other forms of immigrants seeking safety and opportunity. And so this was really a chain migration program that was put into place. You could say anything. And now, they want to make it sound like this is something that's compassionate when we know that women and children are being sexually assaulted on their trips. Women are taking preemptively Plan B pills because they're expecting to be sexually assaulted on their journey. They are indentured servitudes. They are indebted to the cartel who have operational security of our southern border that Chip and I have visited frequently. He has been there more than me. But now, it's who are these new Americans? Well, they're Coloradans. And, they're children, parents, teachers, students, patients, doctors, contractors, homeowners, entrepreneurs, family members, friends, coworkers, and neighbors. But this really was created to protect these illegal aliens who are here, and the tax dollars are going to fund that. And you see the problems that it's bringing in all of our communities by having this policy at a state level. And, I just want to ask one question. Cindy, I want to send it over to you in just one moment. I just want to clarify a couple of things first, because your story is so moving and powerful, and I really want to hear more of that, and then from the other local citizens who are here as well. But Councilwoman Jurinski, you said that Aurora PD recruitment is down about 200. Has that number increased since the state of Colorado took away qualified immunity from our officers? Have you seen that?
I mean, I think that was kind of and I think everybody here that, has law enforcement agencies and their municipalities they represent, I think that we've seen that across the board, right? I think it's been known, and that's why we're seeing here in Colorado huge billboards. Come be a cop in Wyoming. Come be a cop in South Dakota.
Right.
So now these other
where you can actually do your job.
The numbers are down everywhere.
Yes.
Our numbers are down. Austin's down 400 because Austin's crazy. I can be political here and say they're crazy, but so we're down about 400 officers there. We're down in San Antonio. We're down in towns like New Braunfels, in areas that are more rural outside of San Antonio and Austin. We are down virtually everywhere in terms of our ability to recruit. I want to real quick with the state on that one point before we go to Cindy, because I want to go to Cindy quickly. The state senators, state reps, do you have anything to say about that, about the state of police and recruiting, given the current circumstances, qualified immunity and other things?
It's against our police officers. We fight this for 120 days, 2 years in a row. I mean, Senator, do you want to read what we just passed now?
Yeah, so in addition to the new cabinet agency, in effect, there was a bill, it was House Bill 24-1280. So Aurora may not be a sanctuary city, but this bill makes Colorado even more a sanctuary state. The title of the bill is the Welcome, Reception, and Integration Grant Program. So it's a welcoming program to which they placed $2.5 million to just help welcome folks coming in illegally to the state. So.
I mean,
Yes.
Something to understand, and I made it in my opening comments. This is a business. The bad guys that run this, it's a business. They know how, all of you who own businesses, you have a business model. So do they. This is a wealthy country. Douglas County is a wealthy county. They will come here because they can make money and they can accomplish that. In the legislature, we have consistently passed bills, our side in general objects. We've diverted money, you just said $2.5 million that went to that welcoming program at the end of session. We diverted $5 million from other services to Denver Health because of all the illegal immigrants, because it was overwhelming Denver Health. And that's the only safety net. So the people that live here couldn't get services because Denver Health was overwhelmed with the immigrants, the 40,000 plus that we're sitting at. You look at your school systems, they are overwhelmed. Pick your school district, I don't care. They are being overwhelmed. So money that should be going and is allocated by the taxpayers to pay for law enforcement, fire, schools, run down your laundry list, roads, is being diverted to these programs thereby cutting shortages to hire law enforcement, put out incentives, do anything to change the tide.
Yes.
When you don't have money, you can't fight it because you can't hire people.
Right. Well, and even according to the Denver Gazette, the city of Denver has spent more than $74 million since January 2023 to provide housing, food, and transportation to more than 42,000 illegal aliens. And Chip has another statistic that I don't think is included in the $74 million, which is $42 million for healthcare
In Denver.
In Denver. And so this is everywhere and overwhelming the system. And now, Cindy, you know, with your apartments here, you know, we have there was an independent investigation that was done and reported by CBS, and you know, it says that these TDA gang members they were found in this investigation to have beaten and stomped a consultant for the property management so severely that he was taken to the hospital, stabbed a resident for refusing to pay rent to the gang, and threatened to kill a property manager, threatened to kill a housekeeper if she didn't hand over the keys to a vacant apartment, violently breaking into vacant apartments, kicking doors open, and moving Venezuelan illegal aliens into empty apartments. And then they have even used formerly vacant units to host parties where they serve drugs and child prostitution. This is a stash house, essentially, that they're creating in your residence, where you seek refuge, where you want your family to be safe. And ultimately, sure, maybe the entire gang is not occupying this building room by room, but there are places where they have occupied and use this for drug use, solicitation, extortion, and then even the trafficking of adults and children, it seems. So Cindy, if we could hear more of your story, and then I would like to go to the other Aurora residents as well. It would be great.
I've seen a lot of organized crime. They have their own electricians, they have their own plumbers, they have their own
Cindy, could you speak up just a little?
Sorry, we don't have
Thank you.
microphones.
Yeah, sorry.
They have their own electricians, they have their own plumbers, they have their own locksmiths. I don't know what your definition in Aurora or Colorado is of a takeover, but if there are no management, no owners on the ground, there's no maintenance workers allowed on the property, the housekeepers were getting harassed.
Right. It seems like they're being threatened and
Can I
assaulted
pause
when
for
they
a
are.
second? The apartment owners, and I'm not defending whatever, I don't know anything about their decision making, but my understanding is that the managers on the ground were afraid, and so therefore they're not there because out of fear for their safety. It's not like they're walking away saying, let the building burn down. They're saying they can't be there. Is that a fair characterization?
That is a fair characterization, and we did not find out about any of that for several months.
And it's been a few months since essentially there's been no management on the ground in at least some of these buildings, correct?
We just knew that the numbers were not working. We just knew that we would get that the mailbox was full, or that the email was full, or that no response at all. So we started taking the things into our own hands, installing locks, installing cameras. I had 6 outward-facing cameras. There are people thinking that I wasn't armed. I was armed. What are you gonna do against a group of people that have automatic weapons, and you have to pass right through them to go to your car to do your work? I've missed hours from work. My husband's missed hours from work. My kids won't come visit. Talk about your grandchildren. My grandson hasn't been over to that building in a year and a half. It's terrifying.
Can I jump in? Can I just jump in real quick? Because I've become very protective over Cindy and sitting back and watching the slaughter unfold in the media. I signed up for this, she didn't, and I'm just disgusted, and I'm gonna say that. But Cindy, can you when you and I first started talking, and I realized very quickly that I had to put together a plan to get your family out of there, and I got others out of there. You are the only one that has made the media because you have the video footage. But what you talked about, I mean, you told the police officer when we were moving out, you looked at the police officer and you said all the guns are in that building. What did you see in terms of things like that?
I've been reporting that forever. The guns are kept in 1208, period. We don't live in 1208, and we still were, everybody knew that's where they keep the guns. And they keep them on the second floor, so you can't pick it up on my camera. And that's why when we seen them moving the guns that day, it was such a big thing. But I've been reporting guns in that building for a long time. and nothing's been done. And, or I drop off video to the police and their hands are tied, they can't do anything. They are overwhelmed. Just with non-emergency calls, maybe with 911 calls, the whole time. There are many times that I called the non-emergency number and just sat on hold 45 minutes just to be told that they weren't coming. That nothing I did was gonna make a difference, no matter how unsafe I felt, no matter what was being damaged in the parking lot. They were not coming because they had to get together a large group of officers just to respond to any calls.
So, again, try not to get too directly political for purpose of establishing facts. There have been politicians in this state of some notoriety who have dismissed completely and used phrases like there has been no takeover by Venezuelan gangs or no takeover by criminal elements or whatever. I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the quotes in front of me, but we all know it, they're out there. What is your perspective on whether that characterization is true or false as someone who lived there?
If the owners aren't there and the management isn't there, but the people who have the guns are, and they change the locks on the outside of the building, that's a takeover.
And to the point that now some are trying to then point and say, well, the apartment owners were at fault. Again, I don't have any. I did talk to one this morning to try to get some facts, but I don't know them. When you lived there prior to this unfolding over the last several months in particular, right? When the management team, I'm told the management team has moved out as far back as late June, July, and that notices were sent by owners of the apartment complexes to leaders of the state saying, hey, we don't have control of the building anymore because we can't, because they're fearing for their life. If, to the extent that you can characterize, I'm assuming it's not what you would characterize as a palace, as a 5-star resort, but would you characterize prior to this it being up to code, an apartment building that you lived in, that you would call home? Is that a fair characterization? In other words, was there a shift, a change based on what happened? That really matters because they're trying to paint the picture otherwise.
And you can absolutely tell when it changed.
Right.
That's when my calls went to every now and then to 911, to all the time to 911. And I have stood out in that apartment hallway that was on that video trying to defend that floor to keep them off of it because I already knew what was going to happen. The same thing that happened to the other floors. But I lived on the 3rd floor, so I was pretty removed and I thought safe until they came in overwhelming numbers to my floor. And I stood out there and I tried to defend it while I was calling the police. And they said, we are not coming and there's nothing we can do to stop them from kicking in the doors. And there's nothing we can do to stop them from bringing crime to your floor. And what we advise you to do is go inside and lock the door.
Can I add something to this too? This woman called 911 so much they knew her by name. The 911 operators knew her by name. And when I was connected to her, she helped connect me to some other tenants who I, helped in every capacity that I could. But one that I got out, that I helped move him out into another property, just the day before I got him out is when they started changing all the locks on all of the buildings. And he had to go up and he physically got into it with one of them and took a key so that he wasn't actually locked out of his building. And your other neighbor, she wanted to be here and had a whole lot to say. And let me tell you, this woman doesn't want anything to do with Republicans, the one that I spoke to. So this is not a political issue because I think this woman for the rest of her life may vote for Republicans after this. But she made very clear to me where she stood politically. But she explained to me how she carried a steel pole around with her, a steel pole just to live in this complex. And she also called the complex hundreds of times. This is all documented.
So, do you want?
Yeah, Mr. Ellison, I would like to hear your perspective on this too. With the activity that's been in the areas, what you've experienced, what you've seen as a small business owner, and just the presence of these threats that we're hearing, the presence of the Venezuelan gangs.
Yeah, so like Danielle said earlier, it's not the whole city of Aurora. And I live in a nicer part of Aurora, so we haven't seen any of it. The only experience I have is when we went up to help Cindy move out, and it was extremely eye-opening. I mean, I was literally in a 3rd world country for an hour that day. it was crazy. I would say 90% of the doors in that building that we moved her out were kicked in and had a ghetto repair done to the door jamb. It was very eye-opening. And when we got there, the police said, oh yeah, we know this area real well. We're actually not allowed to respond unless there's 4 officers that can respond to that. So, I mean, that tells you something. There is knowledge of this in the police department, but their hands are tied.
So it's an area that's known to not be safe, and so they need
It's been known
multiple.
not to be safe for a very long time. North
officers.
Aurora has been North Aurora for
a long time. North Aurora, has historically been, it's immigrant refugee community. There are very old apartments, 40, 50-year-old apartments, and so, all the cool kids don't live over there. And so they're lower rents, and consequently, you have people that are making minimum wage. This is the best they can afford, so they're living here. But another side effect or consequence of that is that we have these agencies who will come in and pay 3 months of rent, and they don't vet who they're bringing. They're just dropping people off. I work in multifamily housing, and I've seen it firsthand, where they'll bring folks in and say, we'll pay their deposit, we'll pay their fees, we'll pay 3 months of rent. They drop them off, and you never see them again. They don't follow up. You don't know how these people are going to be paying their rent after the 3 months. And then when you're in an area, to Cindy's point, where they've chased off all the management company, it's prime for takeover, and it happens quite a bit. It's just that this has gotten the attention, but this is not isolated, sadly.
Yeah, I'd like to dovetail off of that. I mean, this is the epicenter. I have constituents that work in my district that live up in Aurora, and they have called. They've talked to me multiple times. They have it on their Ring, just like you have it on your cameras. They have it on their Ring cameras where the Venezuelans have broken in their house, broken in their family's house. They've called the police show up and go, we can't do anything. We can't arrest them.
Right.
We can't prosecute them. We can't deport them. And the Venezuelans know this.
Yes.
They sit there and she goes, they flip us off. They curse at us. She goes, we don't know what, and she's lived there for many years. She had a nice house, and she's like, I don't know what we're going to do, because right now nobody wants to buy something when you've got gangs sitting across the street. So it's not, this is the epicenter, but it's expanding.
Yes. Well, I've personally had experience with law enforcement saying they can't do anything because of someone's legal status or lack thereof. I mean, I had a 15-year-old kid run into my bumper a few years back, and police were called, make a statement, no big deal. But he's 15 years old. He doesn't have a driver's license. His mom comes down. The officer finds out that they are both illegals here illegally, and he said, we can't give him a ticket. We cannot do anything about it. Hope you have uninsured motorist coverage. And so I've experienced that, in a very minor way. It wasn't in my home where I was being threatened or anything, but yes, I mean, that's been said to me. I want to go to the Ludlows, but just for a moment, since that topic's brought up, Director, what is the current status of that? Why can't local law enforcement do anything to prosecute and convict someone of these lower level crimes, and it's only a felony? And was it like that before?
No, law enforcement has full authority to prosecute the law. And what the problem is the relationship with ICE, right? If these people who are illegally, let them go to jail or pay their fine, then notify ICE. There's a lot of talk that, when ICE issues a detainer to the local jail saying, we want this person to get down, they say, we're not going to honor the detainer. They don't even have to honor the detainer. All they got to do is pick the phone up and call the local ICE office. This guy is in the country illegally, and we're going to release him tonight, and ICE will be there to pick him up. And what people need to understand is that, they don't have to hold them for a minute past their normal home. Just communicate with ICE. They're in the country illegally. They're not supposed to be here. So turn them to ICE. They'll still get a hearing and put them in front of an immigration judge. But the most important thing, like this, what's going on in Aurora, if they're in the country, whether here illegally or here under some program, you commit a crime, they can be detained because they're violating their orders of release. If they're here to the CHMB program and they get arrested, they just violated conditions of release. ICE can take them and put them in detention. If they're illegally, ICE will certainly put them in detention. At least get them off the streets for as long as we can.
Tom, is it, now this is something important I think for everybody to know in terms of facts. You're wondering why this is occurring. True or false to your understanding that in FY 2022, because I don't have the 23 data in the full ICE data, ICE only removed 44,096 criminal aliens, which was a 62% decrease from FY 2020.
Yeah. It was actually worse than that last year, but in the 3.5 years of record historic illegal immigration, ICE has the lowest numbers of removals in the history of these.
So just it's important for everybody to understand this from the ground up, okay? So the only thing I'm here to impart is that here from the national level, we are deporting and we're removing very few people on a relative basis historically when we have volumes more people and volumes more known criminals. The House Judiciary Committee just issued a report. There was 99 people released into the United States on the terrorist watch list. There was an individual released into the country through Texas, made his way to Buffalo, was arrested a couple of weeks ago because they finally figured out he was wanted for 23 murders in Peru. I can go down the list. I'm not here to testify, but all of this is documented. We've been trying to put this out. We can't get it through the media. We can't get it through the folks say report what we're trying to say is actually occurring. On Texas, we've been getting hit for several years. I think what's important about this, and again, it's particularly compelling with Cindy, I know Lauren wanted to go to Ludlow's, which I do too, the impact on the ground and understanding what the story is.
Let me add one more thing about the ICE thing. I want people to understand this, because rather than reading the media that ICE now, ICE separates families, ICE does neighborhood sweeps, and ICE is indiscriminately arresting people. Here's the fact you need to know. 91% of everybody ICE arrests in the street is a convicted criminal or pending criminal charges. 91%. So law enforcement should be working shoulder to shoulder with ICE because they're targeting the same people. ICE is not out going through neighborhoods saying, okay, who's here illegally? They don't do that.
They don't have time.
Everybody ICE arrests, and John did this for Hero Career too. You gotta have an arrest operational plan. It has to be approved by a supervisor. You're going for a specific person for a specific reason at a specific location. Well-planned operation. 4 or 5 guys going to do this. So please understand, there's no downside on local law enforcement working with ICE because they're both trying to do the public safety mission.
Unless ICE is being directed not to do their job and remove, which is another issue.
Right, and somebody may be directing our law enforcement locally to not make arrests or charge those who are illegal as well. I mean, if they have that full authority to do so.
That's a huge
and so,
point.
yeah, let's go over to that.
Let me just hit that real quick on DAs. So what we have to look at is county DAs actually dropping charges on illegal aliens because they don't want to put the time and effort into those cases that they know are just going to get released, because it costs time and money for DAs to look at these cases, and they think, well, if we drop the charge, ICE will take care of it. So it's another reason why we're seeing a drop in criminal statistics. You'll have an illegal criminal alien arrested, and I saw it multiple times in my career, especially for dealing drugs on the Cherry Creek Trail. We would arrest guys for dealing heroin. They would be brought into Denver drug court, and the charges would be dropped the minute that they found out that they were illegal aliens, because they didn't want them to go into the Denver County Jail and have to spend money on housing an illegal alien in a Denver County Jail. And they thought, well, ICE will just pick them up and ICE will arrest them. No, you're not communicating with ICE. Mm-hmm. So you let them out the back door, ICE doesn't know where they go, and they disappear and they go to the next place. And that's exactly what's happening. And I think everyone in your communities need to hold your DAs accountable to say, hey, if this person's picked up for a crime, convict them. Convict them. That's how we deter crime. Make sure people know that they're going to be convicted of committing crimes. If they know they're going to go in the door and be released out the back door, they're going to keep committing crimes. And that's what we're seeing a lot.
Love those, thank you.
Compared to Cindy, first of all, you're a very brave individual. So, compared to, our skin in the game is minimal. We live in very south of Aurora. We do have 3 children. Our oldest son just bought a property kind of west of Federal, and it's in Denver. It's an okay area, but it's, it's a little marginal. It's what you can afford when you're first newly married. So I started hearing about this, And it's not really on the news media. And, you know, a little background is we grew up in Utah, and my wife had family that lived over here when Aurora kind of had a big buzz in the late 70s, early 80s. It took a long time to overcome that reputation. And when we were moving here from North Carolina in 2001, we literally had people say, do not move to Aurora. And we looked around, and it made sense for us. We moved to Aurora, and the reputation was on the mend, and it was getting better. Even along Colfax, I mean, it was really getting, you know, the Fox Theater, it was getting better. And it's extremely hard for a community to overcome a bad reputation. And Aurora really had gone a long way on that. And of course, there's areas that have more problems and less problems, but as a community, the jokes kind of had gone away. I mean, people talk about, you know, being far out east and stuff, but the jokes about it being a bad area has largely gone away. And all that work, it's just been blown up in 60 days. And so, you know, as a residents, you know, I'm paying taxes, and I care about people that live throughout the whole community. I worked on somebody who ran at large. He didn't win, but you know, it's not just about my neighborhood. And I almost couldn't believe that it could be that bad. So when I went and saw it, I just thought, I cannot believe people are continuing. It's like standing out in the rain saying, it's not raining. And oh, here's an umbrella. Why? Because it's raining. No, it's not. It was clearly a lawless situation. And so I came home and talked to Tracy, showed her pictures.
Yeah.
You know, out of 50 cars that were there were probably 5 or 6 that had license plates. Literally, the vast majority had no license plates. And it didn't hit the news and kept getting worse. And then I heard about Cindy's product, you know, that really brought it home. You're looking at it thinking, I know people are having to live through that. And, you know, Aurora can do better. I'm ashamed of my town right now.
Thank you. That's really moving. And you know, just that is the fact of it. People are having to live through this. And it's so unfortunate. So we have about 11 minutes left. Our councilwoman here has a hard stop at 1:30, and so does my colleague. And so while we kind of wrap this up, you know, we've established some of the facts here that illegal aliens were released into our cities, into our communities, into our state. In large numbers. We have at least 42,000 in Denver, you know, spending 74 million, maybe another 42 million for healthcare. I believe those two numbers are separate. The Denver police has been defunded by about 9%. You know, there are crime in these pockets of areas where these illegals are present, where that is increasing. I would love to, Councilwoman Jurinski, I want to get those photos that you have too of all of the Venezuelans in the cars blocking people in. That's imagery that I think needs to be put out at a larger scale. And then, you know, we've heard from Ms. Romero that, you know, gangs are present in these buildings, and call it, classify a takeover however you will, when they have the keys, when they're busting down doors and windows and accessing other places, vacant rooms, assaulting people, sending them to the hospital, stabbing them, making threats, extorting them, you know, that we kind of consider that a takeover. So this is some of the things that have been established, but we want to get to the goals here of what is causing this at a national level, the open border. And we've discussed that some, but then also locally. Is it the sanctuary policies? Is it the defunding of the police? Is it the low recruitment rate? Or is there something else that we need to be focusing on? And then ultimately, what do we do? As council members of the city of Aurora, what do you do? What can you do? As a former ICE director, what can you do? As congressmen and women, what do we do? What can we do to help you, even if we don't have that status at the statewide level to impact policy? There must be some avenue for us to facilitate. We have our state representatives and our state senator here, what can we do to help ensure that this problem stops and that we don't see it grow and continue into other communities as well?
I would really like to say something else. So for us, I think, yeah, it starts right at the southern border and the lack of vetting. But here locally, a big issue I have, and this organization came out the other day and held a press conference with the quote residents that are still at this complex. I directed Cindy and other tenants to call this very same organization to get help. Did they return your call?
When they finally did, they said they couldn't help me. I didn't qualify for any programs.
But they also questioned you on whether or not I really helped you, right? Okay, so then this same organization comes out and holds this press conference the other day, talking about the residents. I have moved tenants from this property. All of the property owner asked is just for their name to verify that they in fact held a lease. So the folks that were in this press conference the other day, let me make this clear, they're not residents, they're occupants of this building, okay? I have put it out publicly. If any of them want to come forward, all they have to do is provide their name. If it is verified that they had a legal lease in place at any point.
And Ms. Romero had to do that.
Yes, she had to do it. Others that I moved out of there had to do it. Yes, this was the whole process. But I was able to relocate them to other properties, not the same properties, but I was able to relocate them to other properties. So if there are any tenants still in this property, any of these properties that have legal leases, they are being relocated. They are being relocated. But it's very sad to see what happened the other day with this press conference. I've put it out. I've offered help. You know, even financially, even personally financially, would help move and relocate these folks. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. When it's talked about the residents that are still there and their living conditions, the offer is on the table to move any one of them. All I need is their names. I have not heard back from the organization, and I've been emailing one of them. Haven't heard back on that. And I want to talk about, too, how this really is affecting, and I really appreciate outlets like Univision and Telemundo that have really worked hard to get the truth out. Jesus Sanchez, an activist in the local Venezuelan community who has also helped me. But I'm sure you all heard the story several months ago about the men that dressed up as Amazon workers.
Yes.
Well, let me tell you, that was a family from Colombia that arrived 2 years ago. The parents were at work. The doorbell rang. The father looked at the camera to see who was there and told the little boy, and this was all over the news. This is verifiable. There's Aurora police reports documenting this. Told the kids, a 14-year-old girl and I believe a 7-year-old boy, looked at the Ring camera and said, "Oh, it's Amazon. You can open the door." The little boy goes and he opens the door. They push their way into the home, they beat the hell out of the little boy, and they molest the little girl. And then move every single item that these people already had very little, coming here from Colombia 2 years ago, move all of their stuff in front of these children. Now let me tell you something. You will need a translator, but you ought to hear from this father and the grief he has. These folks are real. This Tren de Aragua is not just targeting American citizens, which are being put last by certain activist organizations.
Right.
Don't care about them at all. But they are targeting and attacking other migrants because those migrants are afraid to call the police. But in this situation, this Colombian family had no choice but to do that. And I want to bring it even more locally because it's been called out that our police chief, came out and she went out to the property. First of all, the police officers will tell you there was a large police presence that went out first and swept the area before our police chief showed up. But then our police chief showed up and she, did this video that there's no gangs out here. We're out here talking to people. There's no gangs. There's no gang takeover. Just as Cindy said, as soon as that video went viral, they packed up and jumped ship. First and foremost. Second,
They're still in Colorado.
They're still in
still
Colorado.
there.
Right.
Right.
Yes. Well, that's the point about Aurora. We are the only ones. We came forward first to admit this. You know, they linked Tren de Aragua to the jewelry heist in Denver. Do you think that's all they've done in Denver?
Right.
No.
But nobody in Denver wants to talk about this, right? The difference is in Aurora, we want to talk about this. I refuse to let anybody live like this. I refuse to let anybody live like this, and including this Colombian family
Yes.
that went through this horror with their children. But back to the police chief. We have been saying for a long time that we didn't believe that this was only about code enforcement violations. There's a bigger picture to that. And I said myself regarding Nome Street, it became absolutely uninhabitable. It needed to be shut down. But to shut it down to code enforcement violations and leave it at that and not address the Tren de Aragua presence, guess where these folks went? But now the Aurora Police Department came out on Friday, and the 4 arrests that were made, they linked them all to the shootings on the Nome Street apartments. But you mean to tell me that those apartments were shut down due to code violations? It's gonna come out, folks. I'm not done with this story. It's going to come out how much knowledge the police leadership in Aurora had about this gang, knew what was going on to these people. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of police reports, and I intend to be the police officer's voice, and I will get all of these reports out. I will get them all out. Our police officers, men and women of the Aurora Police Department, are hardworking. They want to go out, they want to do their jobs, but there has been a problem with leadership in Aurora as well.
Chief
So I
Heather
wanna put
Morris
that
needs
out.
to step down today.
She leaves on Monday.
She should step down
She's gone
today.
on Monday.
And the policies too have not helped us do our job or help our cops do the jobs. I mean, to your point, you know, you arrest someone, you take them to jail, they go out the back door, you come in the front door, they're gone into the ether, and they've moved on to another community
Yes.
that's low income, that has a lot of immigrants and refugees that are afraid. I mean, they're underreported because people are scared. They don't want to tell. If something happens, snitches get stitches, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to tell, and they're going to be re-victimized because they know they're here illegally, and that's what these gangs prey on. They prey on that vulnerability.
Yes.
And the fact that we don't have teeth behind what ICE can do and what our law enforcement agencies can do, they know this, they know better than we do.
Yes.
And so we keep getting re-victimized, and we're going to talk about this over and over and over again, and nothing's going to get done until we decide we're going to put some feet on our faith and start doing the work that it's going to take. And people are going to be mad. They're going to cry racism, and they're going to say all these terrible things. But the fact of the matter is, criminals are criminals, and we need to deal with them no matter where they come from.
Heck yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me add
Yes,
this.
Senator.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, Congressman, for coming to visit. What can you do? Well, we all, elected officials, take that oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Here is motivation, not just motivation, but charge for your positions and all 433 of the others that you served with. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution begins this way. The United States shall guarantee to every state, Colorado, in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature or of the executive against domestic violence. It's right in your chart of accounts. It's right in your charter to act on this as Congress and as the executive branch, as the President of the United States and Vice President, to come to the aid of this city. So
I'll close my small part of this, and again, I'm honored that you all would allow me to just participate and hear and listen, so I can take some of this back nationally and back to Texas. But the reason that my staff, who worked through all of August to put together the report that we released yesterday, is entitled Border Invasion, is that a specific reason?
Thank you.
It is. I would encourage everybody to go read it. It's available at my website at roy.house.gov, on my social media on Twitter at Rep Chip Roy or Chip Roy TX, whichever one you look at. You can go out and find it, but or X, whatever it's called. I don't know. Sorry, Elon. But the bottom line is this: these are real stories. It's what I wanted to hear. You're real people. The migrants affected, the 7-year-old boy, the people in that apartment, they're real human beings. When I was first elected in 2019, I remember talking to Tom about this because it still had a Republican administration. And I was down at the border. There was a 7-year-old little girl there. I still have her picture on my phone. I don't do anything with it because she's a human. I'm going to go put that out. There's a 7-year-old little girl in there that had a phone number written on her arm. It was an 843 number, which is a South Carolina number. And so I was speaking to her in my broken Spanish about where she was going and what she was doing and whether she'd been, abused on the journey, and asked some of the boys that were around her, and she had, and acknowledged it, and the boys acknowledged it, and she was just this beautiful little 7-year-old girl. It's like, what kind of a supposedly Christian society are we when we're allowing this to occur, and when we're allowing that to occur to people's homes? It's real. We're not making it up. I hope we can all agree, no matter where you come from or what your background is, that it is not a figment of anybody's imagination, with all due respect to the governor of Colorado.
Right.
This is real, and we're seeing it across the country. Honored to participate. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you. Any final thoughts, John, Director Holman, before we wrap up here?
We need to keep this community safe. We need to work toward making sure that we can get with the legislature and pass the right kind of laws and not these sanctuary laws. The sanctuary laws are what turned Colorado where we are right now today, and we really need to get together behind that and make sure that Colorado does not continue to be a sanctuary state.
Right, and with the state legislature, if there were enough people who agreed with that, who were elected and serving, we could undo a lot of those and
Yes.
get those policies right for Colorado.
Yes.
Director
Well,
Holman?
guys, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm retired now, but I'm gonna get political. The right guy gets in office in January, I am coming back, and I won't forget the city of Aurora
Yes.
or the people that live here. You can take that to the bank.
Thank you. I appreciate you and your service, and so many others here. Any of our representatives, state senators, final remarks?
We're
Councilwoman?
committed to help you. I mean, just let us know what you need. As we don't know what to do, right? We're heavily outnumbered in the state of Colorado, and the legislature is no balance in any way, shape, or form. So it's hard, but when you reveal stories like this, Councilwoman, it's hard for people to ignore. So people need to hear this, and we're there to help you. I'll commit with Senator Baisley to run that bill as well, and we'll get it done. But we need your help on it as well. People need to know the truth and see the truth.
His bill needs to pass.
Yes.
And become law.
I agree.
Yes, your bill.
I'll do anything I can to help with that.
Yes, so, and just to reiterate, that bill would undo the policy that does not allow our local governments to communicate and coordinate with ICE agents. And then also there is that lawsuit that's going forward from Douglas County, Mesa County. There's some others in there who are saying we're suing the state of Colorado for these sanctuary policies that do not allow us to coordinate with ICE. So one or the other, there needs to be that coordination. I agree. And I just want to thank, yes, sir.
So I would add that I would ask the media, like I said, I served 26 years, I've done multiple combat tours. I have seen the same things here that I saw overseas, Iraq, Afghanistan, where you take organizations that inflict and intimidate a population into silence, they get their way. And the media needs to get out there and tell that story. These people that came here, these citizens that are telling their stories, have real families, have real jobs, have real homes. And they are being threatened and intimidated by criminal elements. They're driven by money, and they will use any means necessary. Violence, murder, threats, kidnapping, extortion, you name it, you go down the laundry list, there's nothing that's off limits to them using. If the story is not told about what's happening to them, it will continue to spread until it becomes a glaring, overwhelming issue, and then it can get very, very violent. And I have seen it firsthand. I don't want to see it here, so we have to get the word out, and we have to start tackling it on the ground here and now, because it will not stop.
Yes. And I apologize that we came up past our deadline. I did want to open this up to Q&A, but we all have staff in the room. Those of us who don't may have a card. You're welcome to reach out to us if you have any questions. We're happy to follow up. We will continue to work on this issue and others. I want to thank everyone who's here. We also have Anna Garza here. She's representing Congressman Greg Lopez, who is up in Steamboat today for an event, a meeting that he's speaking to some folks with. So thank you for your presence here and relaying this information to Congressman Lopez as well. And thank you all so much for being here. And then if the media wants some sort of a press gaggle, anyone who in this group who's willing to be a part of the gaggle, we can do that. Awesome. Thanks. That's what it's called.
Stephanie.
You guys need
Yes.
That's my
Okay. We'll reach out. Thank you, appreciate it.